Okay, I had so much fun with the character build for Luke Skywalker, and I had a request to do another one that I think is going to be also really fun. So today on the DnDaily vlog, we are going to look at how you might build one of my favorite new Star Wars characters, and that is, of course, the Mandalorian. Now, if you haven't seen The Mandalorian, I apologize. There might be some minor spoilers in what I discuss and why I build the character the way I do. I think I'll be able to avoid spoilers. You've been warned. I just want to say that up front. All right, let's get into this. Oh, gosh. All right, so in Dungeons & Dragons, we've been talking about over the last couple weeks about, like, building characters, right? Looking at like our backgrounds and our personalities and how we make a more fleshed out character for the games we're going to play in. And 2 days ago I talked about building Luke Skywalker as a Dungeons and Dragons character. And the reason I did that is because I think it's a really fun exercise, and it's a great way to sort of like break through when you get stuck. If you kind of get that sort of writer's block of like, I don't know what kind of character I want to make, using a pop culture or even like a historical figure as one of your inspirations for your character can be a great way to approach character design from the beginning. Now, as a side note, I found that superheroes make really incredible inspiration when you're sort of coming up with a general overall character idea. So keep that in mind as today we talk about a Star Wars character in this case. Also, when we say historical figures might be more a good inspiration for like the personality of a particular character that you're building, more so than maybe the class, race, and so forth. Just the general kind of what they're like and how they act as you develop this character. So let's build the Mandalorian. Here's what I would take as the approach for this. First and foremost, I think it's pretty obvious that this character needs to be able to wear heavy armor, and there's a couple ways we could go about that. We could give him a feat to allow him to wear heavy armor. That works, so we could maybe do some interesting thing like make him a sorcerer or a warlock or some other oddity. That works. However, from my perspective, I think we just want to make him an Eldritch Knight. That's right. Let's start him out as a fighter. Makes perfect sense. He's going to have the combat skills that he needs to be the greatest warrior in the galaxy, or one of the greatest warriors in the galaxy, because isn't that what the Mandalorians are all about? So that's an easy build, right? You start out knowing we're going to build an Eldritch Knight. I think one thing I would do in this case is, I didn't really talk about it for Luke, but for the Mandalorian, it might make sense to make the Mandalorian a half-orc. Let's have his race be half-orc because, you know, that indomitable spirit, that way when he looks like he's going down and he's about to fall, he has that one last kind of push to maybe try to break through and stay on his feet. I think that's kind of cool. So let's also look at why the Eldritch Knight. I think the fact that he's a fighter makes a lot of sense. Obviously, he needs to be able to hold his own in combat, okay, for sure. The Eldritch Knight specifically gives us access to something that I think is important. First is that they get spells, right? And with those spells, they have access to evocation spells and abjuration spells, and I feel like that's all we need. Why? Well, here we go. The Mandalorian has a flamethrower on his wrist, right? That, to me, like perfectly fits with Burning Hands, which is a spell that you would have access to because you have access to abjuration and evocation. Another one is, again, here's one of the spoilers I warned about. In The Mandalorian, we see him using whistling birds. Now, that, to me, is just, I mean, magic missile, right? Why not? And, of course, just firebolt works because, like, he's got a blaster, right? So, firebolt. So, his cantrip, firebolt, pew, pew, pew. He just gets to constantly shoot firebolt if he wants to. He can specialize maybe in melee, hand to hand. I mean, we've seen him using a vibro knife in this, story, this series that we've got going from Disney Plus. So he uses a vibro knife. That's kind of cool. So maybe we give him access to daggers. He does some cool stuff with throwing the knife and stuff. So I mean, a dagger might work as his weapon, but at first level, a fighter with a dagger can be really brutally effective. It's a little bit anticlimactic or underpowered, so maybe we give him a crossbow. Light crossbow, hand crossbow, heavy crossbow, any one of those will work because, again, the Mandalorian is a fighter, right? He shoots stuff. Then, once he gets his martial archetype, well, it's easy to give him, again, the firebolt. Pew pew! So, hey, that's kind of where I would start, right? I mean, and again, I want to emphasize the fact that, like, this is just broad strokes, just to give us an idea of what kind of character we might use. One other little flavor that I was struggling with, and I think I've come up with a reasonable solution, is like, well, what about the grappling hook? Because, yeah, he's got the flamethrower on one wrist, on one of his wrist guards, but on the other one, he's got his, like, grappling hook arm thing, right? So, how could we do that? The easy solution to me is that he uses a whip. A whip in D&D is kind of cool. You get reach, you can use it to grapple and that kind of stuff. So there's some really neat things that you can do with a whip that I think is kind of cool and makes a lot of sense and basically fits. That it being said, we could just give him a regular old grappling hook, although mechanically speaking, I'm not sure how he would use that in combat. You'd have to work that out with your DM probably. So I'm going to go with the whip. Again, I think he's going to have a light crossbow because at the beginning he does use a blaster rifle, but it seems like as they go on, he primarily uses his blaster pistol. So, light crossbow to start out, maybe give him a hand crossbow eventually so he can do other cool stuff. And I wouldn't give him a shield, that doesn't make sense. For sure, again, he's starting out as a fighter, he's got to have the heaviest armor possible, and he definitely has to have a helmet. Helmet is just flavor in D&D 5e, it doesn't actually mechanically do anything for you. So, yeah, okay, if you're wearing full plate, if you're wearing, even half plate, I suppose, we might think that the character's wearing a helmet. But the reality is, any character can wear a helmet. Because, again, it doesn't do anything mechanically in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. So, he could, so as you start out with chainmail or what have you, even if you had him start out with leather, I don't know why you would, but you certainly could because your basic equipment comes that way. So there we go. So we got the basics down. Let's talk a little bit about maybe his starting equipment. We've gotten past. We talked about what class and race he's going to be. So I think now we're going to look at maybe his abilities, right? His ability scores and skills and such. So I think what I should have done with Luke and what I'm going to do now is let's just do the standard array. Like, so 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8, right? So I think I want to put the 15 in strength. It makes the most sense. He's a fighter. Let's get his strength 15. For sure, he needs a high intelligence as well. So maybe we're going to go with 14 for intelligence. Now, maybe since we're making him a half-orc, which half-orcs get a boost to their strength, maybe it makes more sense to put the 14 in strength, so that would make it a 16, which is a great way to start. Make the intelligence the 15, and then we could perhaps use an ASI down the road to make it a 16. Let's make his... Well, the half-orcs also get a +1 to Constitution, so I might want to put 13 as his Constitution and give him the 14, so he's got the extra health. I think his charisma needs to be high too. I'm not so concerned about dexterity, although it could be a good one to put in. So it looks like wisdom is going to be his dump stat. All right, well, so here we go. So let's do 14 strength. Let's say 10 dexterity. How about we go with 13 constitution? That makes it a 14. And of course, the 14 strength would be 16 because of his race. Let's say his intelligence is going to be 15, wisdom is 8, and then charisma 12. That's pretty cool. Now we could go the other way. Maybe it makes more sense to make the dexterity 12 and charisma 10, but once you get into the heavy armors, you don't get the dexterity bonus. So I'm really more inclined to leave 10 as his dex and 12 as the con. That gives him a little extra oomph in his personality, right? His intimidations, his persuasions, and whenever he's trying to negotiate, so forth, he's got a little extra punch in that regard because he's got a slightly higher charisma. And then of course, you know, your skills, you can kind of go anywhere with the skills and personality traits and so forth. So now I've got his, you know, the basics set down. Bonds, flaws, you know, the personality traits and so forth. We sort of know, like, the Mandalorian doesn't talk much, right? So this is going to be that sort of strong, silent type character. And I pretty much have a really solid foundation, once again, for a fun character. It's an Eldritch Knight who is going to have a lot of little tricks up their sleeve. That's sort of the theme, I would say, for this character is an Eldritch Knight who's good in a fight, who's got, you know, tons of tenacity and perseverance, and yet they also have these kind of fun little tricks up their sleeves. Not quite as crafty and handy as I had thought of Luke Skywalker. I don't see the Mandalorian sort of like building his own kind of stuff or anything like that. So for me, it's more about like he's really good at what he does. And then of course we might want to give him a background of, like, you know, why not give him a like your mercenary background or bounty hunter literally as a background. I mean, that makes perfect sense, right? So kind of militaristic, fun. Really, I love this build. I mean, this to me would make a really, really cool and super fun to play character. You know, a fighter that uses a whip and a dagger as their and a crossbow. I love it. I might try this out myself the next time I'm in a one-shot. So share your ideas, your feedback on this build. Do you like it? Do you hate it? And then let's keep talking about these in the comments. As always, I'll see you at a table someday. Check out one of the videos down here next. And hey, remember, it's your game. Play your way.